Welcome to the Bloomberg Australia Podcast. I'm Chris Bourke, coming to you from our Melbourne Bureau. If you're one of those Australians who's been saying for years, I'd love to hop across the ditch and see New Zealand, now might finally be the time to do it. The Aussie dollar is the strongest it's been against the Kiwi in more than a decade. This week, I'm joined by my fellow Kiwi, Ainsley Thomson, who's based in our lovely Wellington Bureau to unpack what exactly is happening in New Zealand and what it means for us here in Australia. Kia ora, Ainsley, and welcome back to the podcast.
Kia ora, Chris. It's good to be here.
Ainsley, you will be very pleased to know that I am heading home to Wellington for Christmas this year.
I am always pleased to hear that, Chris, especially as this year you'll be buying me the glass of wine because you've got the strong Australian dollar behind you.
I did see on the Bloomberg terminal this morning that my Aussie dollar is currently buying $1.15 of your New Zealand dollars, whereas last Christmas I think it was only buying around $1.10. Look, what is happening back home that's making me buy the drinks?
As you said, the Australian dollar is at a 12-year high against the Kiwi. And the Kiwi, it's a week across the board. It's the worst performing G10 currency against the US dollar this year. And what's going on is here it's the economy and the monetary policy. The economy is sluggish at best, and that's probably painting a bright picture. Unemployment is at a 9-year high. And as a result, the Reserve Bank New Zealand Central Bank is cutting interest rates. They've cut by 3 percentage points since last July, and they're expected to cut again this month. In comparison, in Australia, the RBA has paused rate cuts, and there's lingering inflation, and the job market is steady. That means that for New Zealanders going on holiday to Australia, it's really painful at the moment. The Kiwi dollar, $1 buys about 87 cents. I'm coming over in January, and I'm really not looking forward to my kids wanting presents, etc. because, your dollar is not going as far as it used to.
Okay, I guess I'll have to buy you a glass of wine here as well. That's okay. Look, you recently helped write a story about this currency shift and the effect it's happening on tourism in New Zealand, as we alluded to before. So what are you actually seeing in terms of Aussie visitors? Are they coming back in big numbers?
They sure are. In terms of the actual numbers, in the year to September, we saw 1.5 million Australians come over, and that's up about 12% on the year. And it's also the second highest year on record for visitors from Australia. So, the government are very excited about this. They put out press releases to celebrate all the Aussies coming over here. And I think they're hoping to see a lot more of it.
What are they doing when they go to New Zealand? Are they doing the old kind of Queenstown and Rotorua circuits, or are they doing things a bit different this time?
I think Queenstown has, enduring appeal to everyone, really. It's so beautiful down there, and the skiing is fantastic, etc. We can tell from the Queenstown arrivals at the airport there, it's an international airport, but mainly the only real international flights that arrive, apart from the private jets, they're from Australia. So it's a bit of a proxy for Australian visitors. And the numbers coming into Queenstown are at record highs. So definitely a lot of Australians came over for the skiing, the winter just been. The other things we're hearing is because the Australian dollar, has got that strength behind it, the luxury side of tourism in New Zealand, which is something that we have really specialised in the last few years, it's just that little bit more affordable, a little bit easier to justify. We spoke to a couple who came here for their honeymoon, and they stayed at really high-end places that perhaps before they wouldn't have done. But, it just was, I guess it looked a bit better when they worked out their budget. It was just that little bit more affordable. We have also seen a lot of Australians come over for sports games like the Bledisloe Cup, which was on a couple of months ago in Auckland, which I'd like to point out that the All Blacks did win that game.
Hooray.
Yep, they did. And also there's been a lot of golf trips happening and wine tasting, things like that. So things that the favourable exchange rate makes just that little bit more affordable and easy to justify.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually looking at hotels this morning for when I come to Wellington, and I'm probably going to stay somewhere a little bit nicer than where I normally stay, because the prices did seem to be a bit lower, unless it's in my imagination, but I do think they did seem to be a bit lower than normal. But as you say, it sounds like the economy needs these visitors, right? How much does
Absolutely.
New Zealand rely on tourism these days?
It remains a huge part of the economy. It's the second biggest foreign exchange earner after dairy. So, it is really important. But even though we're seeing these very strong numbers from Australia and also from the US and India, the overall level of tourism is still below pre-pandemic levels. And that's mainly due to visitors from China that hasn't come back to the level it was before. We're still seeing it at around 60%. So I think New Zealand is very much looking at developing even more the Australian market, that American market. And, they're especially hoping for a real bump over the summer. Next year is election year in New Zealand, so they want something to boost the economy here. I think something has got to get it going. And tourism is always, an easy way to pick things up. I think it's something like 1 in 9 jobs in New Zealand rely on tourism. So, it is really important.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You've also written a lot about these golden visas, of course, that New Zealand has reintroduced, meaning wealthy foreigners are going to be able to buy luxury homes over there. So I'd guess that a weaker Kiwi dollar is going to make their buying power stretch even further.
It certainly will. The law hasn't been passed yet, but soon people with golden visas will be able to buy houses in New Zealand worth at least $5 million. And we're seeing a huge interest in these visas from Americans. I think something like 36% of the 1,300 people who've applied for one of these golden visas are coming from the US. And so because the Kiwi dollar is so weak, it does increase their purchasing power. And, that $5 million for some people anyway, seems a lot, doesn't seem quite the barrier that perhaps it was.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be looking at the New Zealand real estate luxury listings anytime soon. But, okay, great. When we come back, why are so many Kiwis coming to Australia? So, while Aussies are heading to New Zealand in droves, by the sounds of it, we're also seeing the reverse, that is Kiwis flocking to Australia, but the big difference is, of course, that they're coming here for jobs and to live here. They're not coming here for a holiday. How big a problem is this for New Zealand right now?
It really isn't great. I mean, it's not great for New Zealand. It is great for Australia because, Chris, they get people like you, which is, an absolute bonus. Amazing. Always. Yep. Lots of capable Kiwis coming over. When you look at the data, there were 47,000 migrant departures from New Zealand to Australia in the year to March. That's quite lagging data, even though it's the most recent we have. But I think it's pretty clear from all the anecdotal evidence we're seeing that things have not improved. I mean, everyone here has a friend or a relative or a neighbour who is either left or is about to leave for Australia. And so, it's just not improving at all. And just this week, the local media are reporting that Tori Whanau, and she was the mayor of Wellington until really recently, she's actually decided that she is moving to Melbourne. So she is, joining all the Kiwis over there.
And why wouldn't she? Also, I've got a desk for you in the corner if you feel like coming over and trying out Melbourne for a while as well.
It's always good to hear. I'm one of the few Kiwis who hasn't done it, I think.
Look, I'm old enough to remember when Rob Muldoon was Prime Minister back in the 70s. And he made that famous remark that New Zealanders who leave for Australia raise the IQ of both countries. But we can leave that one hanging there, I think. What about your current PM, Christopher Luxon? Is this exodus putting pressure on him?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge amount of pressure. It is election year next year, so I think for the government, it's just an issue they wish would go away. But as you pointed out with that amazing comment from Muldoon, it's just been a kind of a constant issue that politicians in New Zealand have had to deal with for decades. I think that comment from Muldoon was one of the cleverest replies that we've had. Apparently, it wasn't him who originally came up with that quote, but never mind, he gets all the credit for it. So that's great.
I remember John Key, didn't he go into a stadium or something and say, look, this is how many Kiwis we've lost to Australia?
Absolutely. He stood in, I think it was the stadium here in Wellington, which we call the Cake Tin. It has got an official name, everyone just calls it the Cake Tin. He stood there and said, this stadium holds 40,000 people. That's how many people we're losing each year to Australia. We want to stop it. It has been a rite of passage for New Zealanders to go overseas and, spread our wings, etc. We have a name for it, the OE, the overseas experience. You and I both did it, Chris. I mean, I went to the UK, you went to the UK. I came home. You came home briefly, then left again. But, it is a common thing to do. But I think the worry always is that people won't return. And so, we're seeing now with this big exodus of people going to Australia is that they're older. They're not necessarily in their 20s. They're in their 30s, or like Tory whānau, they're in their 40s. So they're going at a later stage in life when they're perhaps far more skilled. Their careers, are quite advanced, and they're taking that experience. It is a real brain drain. And so I think there is a huge problem for the government that they're going to have to address and, find a way to, I don't know if they can stop it, but I guess the best thing to do is to, lift wages in New Zealand, and then maybe it's more attractive to stay here rather than just leaving and going to Australia for the higher money. There was one period actually in the mid-2010s when we didn't have this issue. We didn't have net migration, which on average in the last 30 years has been about 30,000 a year. And for a while there, it was when we had you probably remember it, the rock star economy. And, the Christchurch earthquake rebuild was going on.
Yeah, that's right.
And at that point in time, there were actually Australians moving to New Zealand to take up jobs. So, yeah, it is possible. It does happen, but we don't see it often.
No, we don't. And this week we got fresh data showing that New Zealand's population is growing. Sorry to keep on talking about negative news, but New Zealand's population is growing at the slowest pace in more than a decade, excluding when it was locked down during the pandemic, of course. Is this mainly due to Kiwis moving to Australia, or is there a bit more at play here?
I mean, definitely Kiwis moving to Australia is the bulk of it, but I mean, Kiwis are just moving, So as you say, it's 72,000. So that's an extra almost 40,000 people who are going elsewhere other than Australia. And once again, it's all down to that sluggish economy. People are, feeling that they have to leave to earn more money. They're just not able to make ends meet staying at home. And another issue is that we're not attracting the migrants to New Zealand either. And I was quite shocked at this statistic. I think that the annual net immigration gain was 12,400 people, and that was down from a peak of 135,000 people just 3 years ago. So, that's a huge drop. I mean, admittedly, that was just as the COVID, lockdowns, etc., were ending and people were suddenly moving around the world again. But still, that's pretty stark figures.
But yeah, I guess a lot of that's due to the economy, right? That they don't. It's not as attractive a place to move to if the economy is not doing well. Absolutely,
they're just they're not the jobs here. Full stop.
But also, as you said, we've both seen these kind of trans-Tasman shifts occur before, and it happens. They just come in waves, and then something terrible will happen in the world, and people will flock back to New Zealand, or the rockstar economy will come back maybe. But what are economists saying about the outlook for New Zealand now? Is there anything positive we can end the podcast on? Come on, Ainsley, I'm relying on you.
Yeah, we definitely need some positive news here. Well, there is hope that these low interest rates are going to start kicking in, and it will stimulate the economy, and everything will be okay again. Economists are picking growth of around 2.5% for next year, which is, that's a big improvement on this year, and I think people will be happy with that. And I tell you who will be really happy with that, and that's the government. They need some good news, and they need, they've been saying they're turning things around. Their time is running out. They've got an election in the next 12 months. They really need something to happen here.
Okay, so some green shoots potentially, but looks like it might just be a bit of a slog for a while. And it sounds like you might be needing that glass of wine when I come and see you in December.
I think I will. Can you make mine a Chardonnay, please, Chris? And from the Hawke's Bay region, none of that Australian stuff.
Noted. Ainsley Thomson, thank you for joining me on the Bloomberg Australia podcast. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to follow the Bloomberg Australia podcast wherever you listen, and check for more reading on foreign exchange, immigration and travel, including the latest from Ainsley Thomson at Bloomberg.com. This episode was recorded on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. It was produced by Paul Allen and edited by Ainsley Chandler and Rebecca Jones. I'm Chris Bourke, and we'll see you next week.